All right, so when you're graphing functions as inequalities, it's really not that much different from just graphing a function in general. So the graph of an inequality is very similar to the graph of the same function with an equal sign. So I'm not saying line because every function works this way. If I had an inequality that was a parabola, you'd still graph the parabola the same way. We're going to get into doing exponential functions. If I were graphing an exponential function as an inequality, you would still use these same principles that we're talking about. We're going to be using lines first. So the type of inequality sign determines what type of line is used. If it is just a greater than or less than sign, without the or equal to portion of it, without that line underneath, it is a dashed line. If it has a line underneath, it's a greater than or equal to, or if you're using less than or equal to, you use a solid line when you graph them. The second thing that you do is the second thing to consider is where the graph is shaded. In an inequality, you have a shaded portion of the graph. The set of numbers that would work to make that little math sentence true is every number in that shaded section. So if you have a greater than or equal to or just greater than, you know to shade above your graph. If you have less than or equal to or just less than, you know to shade below your graph. So you're going to graph your function, you're going to use the correct line, and then you will shade either above or below depending on whether or not it's greater than, or some version of greater than, or some version of less than. So let's look at an example. I'm going to take this off for now. So in an example of 2x plus 4y is greater than 8. The first thing we have to do is solve for y. So that's just like a regular graph. I'm going to subtract the 2x to the other side. I want to get the y all the way by itself, so I'll divide by 4. And I know that y is greater than or equal, or excuse me, just greater than negative 1/2 x plus 2. So then I'm going to use the y-intercept and the slope to plot points. Well, the y-intercept of this graph is at positive 2, so I'd start at my origin and go up 2 and draw a dot. My slope is negative 1/2. So I'll either go down 1 and to the right 2, or I'll go up 1 and to the left 2. I'll have some points plotted. So now we have to pay attention to the sign as we actually draw the line through those dots. This sign does not have a line under it. So if we look here, it's not y is greater than or equal to, it's just y is greater than. This means I need to use a dashed line. So as I put the graph back on the paper, I plotted at 2, I went down 1 and to the right, down 1 and to the right, I drew in my dashed line, and then because it was a greater than symbol, okay, this is how I pay attention to where to shade. Greater than means shade above. What that means is the solutions are greater than the line. So that means if I plugged in this value right here for x, this is the value of 1, I would end up with a y value that was greater than a number on this line. So I hope that helps, and we'll practice tomorrow.